What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Another Turnover, the basketball podcast where a basketball fan with zero basketball credibility gives his opinions on what's going on in the NBA. Opinions that nobody asked for. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Chris Aaron Murphy, aka Ron, and ladies and gentlemen, let's just jump right into it. Alright folks, we got lots to talk about, so I am super excited for today's show, as I always am for every week's show, but this one just feels a little more exciting for some reason. I don't know why that is. But Season 3, Episode 11, this is the 61st episode. I'm chugging along. By this rate, I don't think I'll hit 100 this year. But next season, 100 episode, should be fun. But I got a lot of things, like I said, that I want to talk about. I want to jump right in, though, and let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. I feel like I haven't talked about them in a few weeks. I could be wrong about that, but I really can't remember the last time I talked about them. But if you remember earlier in the season when I did talk about them and how bad they were, remember I predicted, so expertly predicted with my expert analysis, that, if they had a slow start, Steve Nash was going to get fired. Well, they had a slow start, and Steve Nash ended up getting fired earlier in the year, if you remember. But after Steve Nash got fired early in the season, the Nets have been balling out. They have been playing extremely good basketball. I was taking a look when I was putting the show together. Since December 2nd, they have won 15 of 17 of their games, and they beat some good teams in that stretch. They beat the Bucks, they beat the Cavs, they beat the Warriors. They have beat some solid teams. KD is doing his thing. I mean, he's putting up 29.7 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game, and 5.3 assists per game, which, I mean, we kind of expect that from him. I'm not taking anything away from Kevin Durant, but we kind of expect that. So, but he's doing his thing nonetheless. Kyrie Irving also playing well, 26 points per game, 4.9 rebounds per game, and 4.7 assists per game. Ben Simmons he's doing all right. I mean, I know he's dealt with some injuries back in and out of the lineup, but 7 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, averaging a smooth triple-single, Draymond Green numbers. So not great for his standards based off what we've seen from him in the past when he was in Philadelphia. But, I mean, at least his defense is halfway decent. Perimeter defense is, mostly solid this year. But the team does seem really inspired to play for their new head coach, which I'm not sure if he's interim or if they actually made him the head coach, but Jacques Vaughn, who has been an assistant for quite some time now. He's also a part of the Coach Pop coaching tree. He was a player for San Antonio in the late 2000s. I remember he was Tony Parker's backup, if I'm not mistaken. But I remember Jacques Vaughn pretty distinctly, being a Spurs fan myself. But they've been playing solid basketball. Top 10 right now. I took a look at their top 10 in defensive rating, which is pretty impressive because we talked about how bad their defense was earlier in the season and last year, for that matter. But also top 10 in offensive rating as well. I think they're ninth in defensive rating and fifth in offensive rating, if I'm not mistaken. So playing some pretty solid basketball. Big kudos to the Nets for turning their season around after that very slow start in the beginning after Steve Nash's firing. But unfortunately, a little bit of bad news with the Brooklyn Nets. If you haven't seen, it came out the other day. Kevin Durant did go down with a knee injury. I have the article pulled up here. Headline says Nets star has a sprained MCL in his right knee and is expected to miss a month per the report. So it says, injury. He got injured against the Miami Heat in Sunday night's game, which the Nets did win 102-101. I think it was Jimmy Butler that accidentally fell into his knee, so it was a contact injury, which most of the time contact injuries are a bit better than non-contact injuries. But it is an MCL sprain, and he will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. If you remember, a little less than a year ago, according to the article, Durant suffered an MCL sprain that kept him out for 6 weeks. But there is optimism, according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. There is optimism that he will be sidelined for less time with this knee issue, with the current expectation that he misses about a month. So we shall see if Kevin Durant does come back, healthy. After his Achilles injury, it doesn't seem like he's lost a step. I talking about the Achilles injury that took place in 2019 in that Golden State Toronto Raptors final series. But he came back. He was out for a while, but he came back and has looked smooth. He's had some injuries here and there since his return from that injury. But Kevin Durant, I mean, I'd say he's still top 5 in the NBA. I don't think that's, a stretch at all, in my opinion. But Kevin Durant, unfortunately, like I said, will be missing some time. I think the Brooklyn Nets will be able to hold it down without him for 4 weeks, about a month. Obviously, you're losing a huge scoring load, and Kevin Durant obviously does more than scoring. I mean, defensively, he's not half bad. He's a pretty decent playmaker overall. So you're missing quite a bit from Kevin Durant. I don't want that to be understated, but I think Brooklyn can weather the storm. And that's my feeling with this. With the way they've been playing, I think they can weather the storm without Kevin Durant. Not saying that they're gonna. I mean, could they be above 500? For the month of January, that is. I could see it. I mean, they have Boston tonight, so they're probably gonna lose tonight if all of Boston's players play, which I think Marcus Smart might be out. But I think they can weather the storm. They've got a mildly tough schedule over the next 4 weeks. I was taking a look at. They do have Boston twice over the next 4 weeks. And once, I mean, obviously, like I said, tonight, yesterday, when you're listening to this, because I'm recording Thursday, but they have Golden State as well. They have Philadelphia. So they've got some solid teams, but overall, it doesn't seem too bad of a month for January for them to weather the storm without Kevin Durant. But we shall see. That is what I wanted to discuss about the Brooklyn Nets. But let's transition just a little bit. Let's talk about the All-Star game. All-Star weekend is coming up. All-Star weekend is just about a month away, if I'm not mistaken. It's usually close to Valentine's Day, from what I remember. But among my favorite times of the year is the All-Star Weekend. I really love All-Star Weekend. Ever since I was a kid, I would watch all of the I'd watch the celebrity game on Friday, and then all the different challenges that they would do on Saturday, and obviously the big game Sunday. So I remember, like I said, being a small child, watching all of those games and having very fond memories of them. But this year, the All-Star game is held in Utah. Whoever made that decision, don't know what they were thinking, but the game's in Utah. But I really do love how they've changed the All-Star game dynamic over the past couple of years. The having the team captains and then having the playground style selection of the teams has been really cool. So you have East and West guys playing on the same team, which I love. I think that the NBA should just go top 1 through 16 for the playoffs, but that's a story for another day. But like I said, I love the playground selection with the team captains. Reminds you of when you used to play basketball at recess or growing up, and it's made for some funny moments as well. Like, who can forget when Kevin Durant didn't want to pick James Harden last year after he got traded from the Brooklyn Nets to the Philadelphia 76ers. He left James Harden on the board, and Chuck and Kenny and whatnot were instigating the whole thing. LeBron was cracking up. Who could forget that? When Giannis was captain against LeBron, and Giannis was, talking about, hey, isn't that tampering? Can't remember who LeBron picked to make him say that, but I remember that was pretty memorable. So I really loved what they've done, what they've changed with the All-Star game specifically. But currently the voting is taking place. Voting takes place until, let's see, the 21st, it looks like. So right now, LeBron is the overall leading vote getter of both conferences. You have Kevin Durant leading the Eastern Conference in terms of votes. And then you have Steph Curry leading guards in the West, Kyrie Irving leading guards in the East. So right now, that is how it shapes out for the leaders of each conference and of the front court and the guards. You also have, let's see, I'm looking at the top 10 right now. Somehow, Kevon Looney is top 10 in vote getting for the Western Conference front court, which okay. And remember, fans only take 50% of the voting power, whereas NBA players and media each get 25%. But who else is in the top 10? Austin Reeves is in the top 10 for guards in the West from fans. This is all strictly fan voting. Who else? Derrick Rose is top 10 in the Eastern Conference. So, yeah, they probably won't make the team. You also got Nick Claxton from Brooklyn, who's top 10. Obviously, those are all pretty large markets, New York and Los Angeles. So, yeah, I'm glad that the All-Star game is not strictly fan vote, because then we'd have Austin Reeves starting in the All-Star game. Which no one wants to see that. I don't care if you're a Lakers fan either. No one wants to see that. But like I said, going back to the game itself, I love the changes they made to the game. So in the fourth quarter now, you're playing to a target score. So whoever has the highest score has to score. You go 24 points higher than that, which is a tribute, obviously, to the late great Kobe Bryant. So you have to score at least 24 points if you are the leading team going into the fourth quarter, and then obviously if you are not the leading team, you have to score that target score, so you have to score more than 24 points. So I think it's great. I think it's really entertaining. It's really fun. It makes that fourth quarter very, very competitive, which is great. And they're playing for charities as well. Like, they go based off of quarter. Like, so whoever wins what quarter gets money for their respective charity, which I'm probably not explaining that fully, but that's kind of how they do it now. So I really like that as well. So they're playing for charity. They're playing to a target score in the fourth quarter, so it makes it more competitive. Because if you remember before they did that, some of those All-Star games, I was like, man, this is awful. Like, you had Steph Curry laying on the ground. I mean, I know they're out there, trying to have fun, not get hurt, but it was kind of bad basketball. But as far as the weekend itself, I've always loved, all the different challenges. The skills challenge now is really cool because they do bigs versus, the guards. And the bigs have won the past couple of years, if I'm not mistaken. Now you have incredibly skilled big men in the NBA, which I love. I mean, Nikola Jokic, one of my favorite players to watch. Joel Embiid, another one, really solid. You got the three-point contest. That's pretty electric as well. Some of the past few years with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, absolutely shooting the lights out. But the dunk contest, I got to be honest, the NBA's got to do something with the dunk contest because it's been trash for the past 4 or 5 years. The last great dunk contest I remember watching in its entirety was the one with Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon when they had their dunk off, when they kept both getting 50s. That was probably the last great dunk contest that we've seen. Since then, it's been awful. Like, it's just been terrible. I think the NBA's got to do something. Like I said, it's been trash for the past few seasons. It just sucks that no big names ever do the dunk contest. And I don't know why. Like, I don't get it. I don't know. Is it fear of getting hurt? Fear of getting embarrassed? Ego? Like, I don't know why big names, like, I know LeBron James years and years ago said he might do it. And obviously he's 38 now, so there's no chance of him doing it. But I don't understand what it is. But what could the NBA do to fix the dunk contest? Could they have a prize, money, like a charity, kind of like they do in the actual All-Star game? Could you have tryouts from fans? I know there's some non-NBA, crazy dunkers out there. That actually might be pretty interesting. Like, what if there was a competition and NBA did private tryouts and you had, like, non-NBA celebrity dunkers versus NBA players and you had them compete? I think that might be pretty interesting. It might spice things up. It might give an incentive for NBA players to either try harder in the dunk contest. But I think that'd be pretty cool. But I do think that the NBA could add another competition. I said this, I commented on someone's TikTok a couple weeks ago about it. I think the NBA should add the game King of the Hill to All-Star Weekend. So if you're not familiar with King of the Hill is basically, it's basically one-on-one between two players. But you're only allowed to take, it's a half-court game, you're only allowed to take 3 dribbles to score the basketball. And it makes for some pretty interesting creativity with the basketball, pretty solid matchups. I watched the Washington Wizards. I think it was the Washington Wizards. Yeah, they posted a video of their players playing King of the Hill in practice. Kyle Kuzma, Kristaps Porzingis, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and it was really entertaining. Just that little clip, 60-second clip that they showed, and I was like, man, we need King of the Hill at the All-Star game. Imagine Kevin Durant, King of the Hill. Imagine Steph Curry or these great. Just any isolation player. James Harden, King of the Hill. You can only take 3 dribbles. I think it'd be pretty entertaining. Probably won't ever do it because of NBA players' ego. Like a one-on-one competition. Maybe, maybe not. But I think it would be super fun to watch. And I think the NBA could stand to make a lot of money from a King of the Hill competition. But that's all I have about the All-Star game. And then let's transition one more time. I have a a segment here that I just basically kind of wanted to talk about as we're halfway through the season. We're over 40 games in the season now. There's obviously 82 games to be played, or 82? Yeah, 82 game season. We're halfway through now. And I want to talk about who I think at the halfway point are the three legitimate contenders. Like, my opinion, the champion is going to be one of these three. I already have my preseason pick, if you remember earlier in the show. But these are the three that I really see winning the championship. In no particular order, I'm going to list them out. But it's probably going to make some people upset. But it's just my opinion. Don't get too mad at me. But these are the three that I really see could take it. These are my legitimate contenders for the title. And the first one is a pretty obvious one. It's the Boston Celtics. I mean, solid all around, offensively, defensively. They're top 5 in defensive rating and top 5 in offensive rating. I mean, you have, like I said, a good mix of veterans and young players. Jaylen Brown, playing like an all-star, should be an all-star. Hope he's an all-star this year. Jason Tatum, MVP caliber season so far. I wouldn't say he's leading in MVP right now, but MVP caliber season. They're number 1 in the Eastern Conference. I think they still have the best record, or they might be like half a game or a game behind the Nuggets and the Grizzlies in the Western Conference for the best record. But anyway, Boston Celtics, legitimate contender, could win it all. Second one is the Milwaukee Bucks. They were my preseason pick, if you remember, if you've been watching the show all season. Giannis, I mean, just the other day, this man scored 7 points in a win against the Atlanta Hawks, which the Atlanta Hawks have not been great all year, don't get me wrong. But he had 18 rebounds and 10 assists. That man does what it takes to try to help his team win basketball games. So they're still dealing with, nagging injuries from Chris Middleton. He didn't play that game against the Atlanta Hawks the other day. But I trust them come playoff time. Obviously, they won a championship just 2 years ago. 2021 champions. They beat the Phoenix Suns. Had a pretty solid run to get to the championship. Had to go through the Brooklyn Nets in a grueling, entertaining Game 7 series. But the Milwaukee Bucks, legitimate contender, could win it all. And the last one, this is probably really going to upset some people. But it's the Golden State Warriors. I know, you're probably like, wait, what? The Golden State Warriors, legitimate contender? I know, they're 8th in the West right now. They're 20-21 on the season. They have the worst record on the road at 3-16. And yet, despite all of that, I still would pick them to beat Memphis. I still would pick them to beat Denver. And now, obviously, all of these picks are barring health. Like, I don't want that to be misunderstood. Everybody's healthy on every team. I'm picking the Golden State Warriors to come out of the Western Conference to beat anybody that they would see. Like, if I'm a team, right now they're ranked, like I said, 8th in the West. If I'm a team in the Western Conference, I don't want to see them in the first round. Like, I really, really don't. I do not want to see them. You want to prolong matching up with Golden State as long as you can, because this team just knows how to win. As a San Antonio Spurs fan, a diehard San Antonio Spurs fan, who's played Golden State multiple times now in the playoffs, the team knows how to win. They're well coached. Defensively, they're solid. Usually. This year, not so much. But offensively, you know what you're going to get. Golden State Warriors are the third legitimate contender to the title this year. Now, that being said, it'd be a nice surprise if it wasn't one of those three teams. If it was the Cavs. If it was the Grizzlies. If it was the Nuggets. I would take that as a pleasant surprise. The Mavericks. I would take that, like I said, as a pleasant surprise. But they're not Boston, Milwaukee, or Golden State. So I'll leave it at that. Last thing that I want to transition to for this fine episode on January 13th. This will be the only thing that I'll be celebrating about this year with the San Antonio Spurs, unless we get the number 1 pick. But the Spurs are set to break the NBA single game attendance record. So I have the article pulled up here. So the Spurs are going back home for the 30th anniversary of the Alamo Dome. And it says the San Antonio Spurs are set to break the NBA single attendance game record on Friday night, so tonight, when they host the Golden State Warriors. The Spurs have announced they've sold 63,592 tickets for the game, like I said, which will be played at the Alamo Dome, their former home in San Antonio. And it is possible with standing room tickets, the Spurs could host about 68,000 people at the game. So I think this is pretty cool. I think it is, a nice touch for the Spurs to go back to the Alamo Dome, 30 years for their anniversary. So that's pretty exciting. I hope that, I don't know if the game is nationally televised. It should be. Biggest NBA game ever in terms of attendance. But I hope the Spurs win. They probably won't, but I hope they do. But I think that's pretty cool that they'll have the record. As of now, the last biggest game was 1998 in Jordan's last game against the Atlanta Hawks. They played at the Georgia Dome in front of 62,000. So hopefully it's a record that stands for another 20, 30 years, but we shall see. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the show I have for you fine folks this fine weekend. I appreciate you listening, watching. If you could do all the good things, like I say, like, share, subscribe, leave comments, I would greatly appreciate it. If you're listening to this on Monday, happy Martin Luther King Day. I hope you reminisce on all the wonderful things that Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement contributed to our country. But anyway, I hope you have a great weekend. Take care, stay safe, and I will see you next week.
Just too quick for it, peeling off like the whip orange. Seen they effort, this piss poor. I got too much, I gotta tend to. Car payments and the rent due. Told y'all that I'm 6 foot, but with the money statement, I'm 10 too. Too much that I've been through, so I put it